who seeks to explain that people of determination aren't that different from neurotypicals at all. He does so by explaining what Asperger syndrome truly is. Please welcome Eduardo.
Well, hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to tell you about Asperger syndrome, a mental difference very near and dear to my heart, as I actually am an Aspie, or if you would prefer, an Aspergian, a Aspergite, a person of Aspergia, etc. Along with that, I also have ADHD, OCD, teenage angst, all very unusual disorders, which I guess just make me very determined. Now, I imagine most of you didn't come here to hear me go on and on about my personal life and this talk about ideas worth spreading. Well, I do have an idea, and I feel it's worth spreading. I feel that people with determination, aka people with mental differences, like moi, are constantly being discriminated against and demeaned, to the point where the word autistic is an insult in and of itself. People aren't properly educated on what mental disorders actually are, and as such, misinformation breeds contempt and even hate. However, if you didn't know that much about Asperger's or ADHD, don't feel bad. I didn't either, and I'm the one with Asperger's. Now, what I'm about to say might sound like a weird joke, and God knows I've made quite a few of those already, but I assure you it's not. Asperger's does not exist per se. It's a part of the autism spectrum, a spectrum of autistic disorders. You see, in 2013, the APA, or American Psychiatry Association, decided to take 4 different conditions: autism, Asperger's syndrome, childhood disintegrated disorder, and PDD-NOS, and just stick them all under the same spectrum with the intention of making it easier for doctors to diagnose them. They decided to memorialize their decision in DSM-5, which, get this, stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, DSM-5. Let me tell you, I pity the man who had to put that on a book cover. So the manual states that an Aspie's strengths can include, strengths and weaknesses that is, remarkable focus and persistence, an aptitude for recognizing patterns, and an incredible attention to detail. However, we also have hypersensitivities to light, sounds, taste, etc., difficulty with the give and take of conversation, difficulty with nonverbal communication skills, distance, loudness, tone, etc., and there are uncoordinated movements, or as it's more colloquially known, clumsiness, anxiety, and depression. So, yeah, there's that. According to Wikipedia, the world's most reliable site for unreliable information, Asperger's syndrome, AS, otherwise known as Asperger's, is a developmental disorder characterized by significant difficulties in social interaction and nonverbal communication, which in layman's terms just means that we're not too good with the socials, at least not at first, and we tend to pretty much only like a few things and the few things only, and love to talk about them, and sometimes have very repetitive routines or rituals which might look strange to the outside observer. Now, I've heard that first-hand evidence is a lot more appealing than some random scientific anecdotes, so let me go back to talking about myself, which I guess is even less interesting. Like, for example, I'm not exactly brilliant with the socials myself, as I have a large problem understanding such subtle social cues as being told to stop talking, maintaining a two-way conversation, and learning not to force my opinions on others, along with a few other things that people do not seem to be too comfortable with. I think, because they'll never really tell me. Furthermore, while my interests do in fact change over time, they often only do so until I can be legitimately considered an expert on the subject. That hyper-focused determination to find out more about something I like makes for an amazing walking, talking trivia machine. but it doesn't really help me in the friendship department. Now, all of this might give off the impression that we are substantially different from most neurotypicals. This is untrue for the most part. The thing is, we are, in fact, capable of learning as much as any neurotypical and of leading regular lives. We just take a different approach. In fact, I'd go as far to say that you and I are not really all that different. After all, I love music, at least those stuff that's on the radio, movies, or at least the ones you haven't heard of, YouTube, or at least, again, the people you haven't heard of. Video games, sometimes. Netflix, when Adam Sandler isn't on. And most other things that kids my age like, except for trap, which I will not like in any context. So, we all want the same things, to worry about the same things, wake up every morning to go to breakfast and hope. Some people have really weird ways to go about their mornings. We just carry out these things in a different way, and the more people actually understand these differences, the more we as a species can understand that we have a lot more similarities than differences, but neither our differences nor similarities are bad nor good. A lot of the misinformation about us comes from our stereotypes in television and film. That stereotype being that we are sociopaths with incredibly high intelligence and inability to communicate with people, and huge nerds. Sound familiar? You can't compare me with him! I'm a lot more handsome! Some of these stereotypes are meant to be positive. They are still stereotypes and unrealistic ones. In reality, we're not that different from anyone in this room. We just do things differently, which, to be fair, everyone does to some degree. However, it's quite common for the human mind to lean towards prejudice, and as such, all of us have a tendency to ostracize or sometimes even bully people who we see as weird. We often don't do this out of any sort of malicious intent, but simply because we wish to distance ourselves from people who we find unfamiliar and strange. Well, unfortunately, that ostracization can lead to a laundry list of emotional and mental problems, up to and including serious anxiety and even depression. For example, I've had to deal with occasional bouts of depression due to having an increasingly pessimistic and cynical worldview created from feeling excluded, the fact that I think everyone just thinks I'm weird, and that social interactions just this inherently stressful thing for me. This anxiety usually pushes people to hide in their safe zones, whether it's video games, music, even vice, all of which makes them look weird if they do it all the time, and so the cycle repeats. Or at least that's what my therapist says. And I wouldn't want you to get the idea that this school of ours isn't trying to help me in any way. They are. The counselors actually give me quite a bit of assistance. Assistance that might look like pampering to you, but it's mostly there to help us adjust to school made by neurotypicals, to my knowledge, for neurotypicals. But the problem that people like me face isn't really about academics. It's about discrimination. Now, how do we solve this? Well, I personally suggest that we do more of their school to help educate the populace about determined people. So, how's about we educate with a school board's heaven and the students' hell, one extra class? Let's take a specific part of moral education, like a minuscule unit. This unit would help focus on disorders and differences, which would help educate the general public about people on the autism spectrum. So, folks, I'm Texan, I get to say that. As I've just shown, Aspies are human beings, ones with hopes and dreams, ones who simply act differently, and how you treat us can have a huge impact on our lives. So we don't ask to be treated completely differently than other people, not as some charity case to be pitied, but simply as another person. After all, aren't we all a bit different? It's what makes us human, after all. Remember, we have a lot more in common than we have differences, and the more informed we are, the better armed we are in our fight against discrimination, against people with determination. So the next time you find yourself a so-called weirdo, give a helping hand, and you might have just earned yourself a new friend. Or at least someone who can tell you the names of every single actor on Breaking Bad without having seen a single episode. Thank you.